B'Shem HaShem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night, Shiur, Jewish intimacy, where, Baruch Hashem, the Ramban has been educating us about what is the significant difference between the Jewish people and the rest of the world. What is the significant difference between Jewish intimacy and what the world calls sexuality? And tonight is going to be just like the other 30 or so lectures in this series, another shocker, another insight, another rewiring of our minds is necessary in order to truly take things to heart. Tonight's shiur will be for the Refuah Shlema and Atzlacha Rabba for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Zora, Sarah bat Esther, and all of Am Yisrael, all the righteous Noahites, especially the ones that watch our shurim and contribute to our organization by donating on a regular basis and helping us as much as they possibly can, because there's so many different projects, Baruch Hashem, that we're doing. There's just simply not enough time to even tell you guys about it. But Baruch Hashem, it's going. It's a lot of action. The distribution here in South Florida of all of the different books and CDs and USBs and everything else is simply going much, much better than we ever thought and ever imagined. I think the special siyata dishmaya that we've had in that project has simply been because there wasn't really much planning. There was simply a will to bring more Torah to the community, and Baruch Hashem, there are literally countless people that are getting free education, free books in English, in Hebrew, about different subjects. And you see so many happy pictures that we're getting every day. We're publicizing some of them. We're seeing people putting on tefillin. We're seeing people excited about Torah. And Baruch Hashem, there's more Torah being learned. It's a very expensive project. As far as money is concerned, I have to estimate it's probably somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 a week is being spent right now to simply supply everything that's necessary. But any of you that want to join us in this project are more than welcome to. Of course, the other projects are feeding the poor that we do all year. There has been several new families in Israel that we've put on the list of different people that we're sending them money on a weekly, sometimes on a monthly basis. Today, there was a tzaddik from Eretz Yisrael that asked me if I have a family that needs some help for Shabbat because he wants to donate for it. And, for me, it's Baruch Hashem, always nice to hear people wanting to donate, but at the same token, it's amazing that the people don't realize how much need there is, and there's simply an enormous amount of need. And Baruch Hashem, we're trying to do whatever we can. The families that we know, the families that come to us through different ways, we try to help them as much as possible. Some of them are older, some of them are younger, some of them have kids, some of them have tragic stories that you don't even want to hear about. But Baruch Hashem, anyone that wants to help us feeding the poor in Eretz Yisrael is more than welcome to. There's simply not enough time for me to do a campaign for everything. So if you want to help us with that, you can. If you want to help us with our kollel of Dayanim, as I spoke to one of my very dear Talmidim earlier today, we were studying together a little bit a sugya, which is a really simple, basic Judaism, but unfortunately, there are many people that are teaching the opposite, and sometimes just simply doing it out of ignorance, sometimes out of evil. I'm not really sure which one it is at all times. I don't know everybody. But all I know is that as soon as you go into the books, you find the sources very quickly, you find the truth very quickly. And Baruch Hashem, one of the things that I tried to explain to him is that all of the different people that like to speak against us, like to say the things that we do are not right, like some of the people that are trying to annoy and stop us with our local distribution of books and tefillin and everything else that we're doing here in Florida. There's plenty of these fake Hasidim that are trying to bother our boys and telling them to stop and yelling and trying to embarrass them, but in reality they're embarrassing themselves. And of course, there's all of the people online in different places. And I always tell people, listen, while everybody can say whatever they say about my personality and what they like and what they don't like and what I say and what I don't say, bottom line is, until this day, Baruch Hashem, it's been approximately a decade or so that we've been giving shiurim. Not a single time has anybody brought a mistake where we said something that's the opposite of what the halacha is, and we didn't correct ourselves. That we said something that's the opposite of what Gedolei Yisrael said, and we didn't correct ourselves. All of these people, generally speaking, are always just picking at straws of why they don't like the way, but they can't necessarily pinpoint any specific thing that we've done wrong. And on the other hand, I explained to him is that the reason for that is not because I'm such a genius or so I know so much. It's simple. I surround myself with tzaddikim, with talmidei chachamim. We have a kollel of dayanim. These are the people that we learn with. These are the people that we rub elbows with. And these are the people that know everything. And one of the rabbis that I know here in America who has a kollel for dayanim, he told me people don't understand how much of a need there is for dayanim in America, where all of America, which is the largest Jewish population in the world, is in America aside from Israel. Yet, with all of the millions of Jews that are in America, there are less than 100 dayanim in America. Less than 100 dayanim in America. Our kollel alone, we have almost 10. So it's just so you understand, our kollel alone in Israel is already almost 10% of all the dayanim in America. So when you see all of the people that speak against, generally speaking, you're not going to find dayanim or real talmidei chachamim speak against. You're just going to find some pulpit rabbi or some YouTuber or some person that simply has nothing to do with themselves or with their life. That's who you're going to find. Why? Because if you go to real talmidei chachamim, they're going to tell you, listen, what he says is in the books. It's not a chidush. He's not giving you any new insights about the Torah. He's telling you basically what's written. You can look it up yourself. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of quoting the sources. That's the beauty of the Holy Torah, where you know you're going in the right direction. You know you're going, as the Torah says, b'derech amelech. And of course, the same concept goes with everything else that this series has been teaching us. But before we start the series, I want to give you guys a little bit of an update, small update of our new winner. We have our new winner. Our new winner, because we said that every new 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, we're going to be giving out a prize that is a valuable prize, and we have ourselves. This is the prize. The prize is my one of my favorite books ever, and it's a book that we actually did a whole series on, the Pirkei Avot. But this is not just any Pirkei Avot. This is the deluxe version that ArtScroll has with the English and Hebrew, as well as commentary from different sages throughout all of the times. It's a fantastic book, highly recommended to read this book. But of course, many times people can get lost in the commentary, can get lost in the translation. They're not necessarily understanding everything. And that's why we accompany this amazing book with our USB of 179 lectures about the Pirkei Avot, going over word for word every single page in this book, as well as much other material that we got from many other books, Baruch Hashem. This series took us, I think, almost 3 years, and by far the most extensive series we've had. And the winner will get this. Our last winner actually got this package sent to Israel. So we don't have any limitations to our winners. So we sent them to Israel. They're very happy about it. And now we're going to announce the next winner. And the next winner is, what is this? Brian S. 5122. Okay, yeah, it's not okay. So Brian S. 5122. That's the winner. Baruch Hashem. He's also an extraordinary person that also helps us with putting the timing. Some of you that are following us on YouTube and everywhere, you could see that he often puts the timing on the different clips that we can make, or different chapters and segments of the shiurim. So I'm actually very happy to give him the prize, and Baruch Hashem, he deserves a lot more. But this is going to go to you, Brian. Just I need you to contact me and tell me where to deliver it. This extraordinary package, B'ezrat Hashem. Of course, we're going to add a few other goodies in there, as we always do in our packages. So Brian S. 5122, our YouTube subscriber, student, and extraordinary contributor to our Torah and our Kiruv. So thank you very much for participating. Again, we have only a few hundred subscribers away from getting to the next 1,000, which I think is 40,000. And of course, another prize will be given at that time. Anybody that's a new subscriber is going to be included, but also all of the old subscribers are included in the so-called raffle. So, with that being said, we have, Baruch Hashem, a lot to talk about, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll get to it. So, the Ramban has really been re-educating us about what to think about when it comes to intimacy. In fact, he showed us an extraordinary difference, a world of difference between what Jewish intimacy is versus what the world calls sexuality. And of course, anytime a person thinks about intimacy, typically they're thinking purely about the physical aspects of it or the results. But rarely does anyone go into the thought processes of what's going on. And that's, in essence, the segment that the Ramban has been discussing in the last couple of lectures, where in so many words, the Ramban is telling us that your thoughts are not empty thoughts. Your thoughts can create a reality. And in fact, one of the things that all parents, and Baruch Hashem, a very proud parent of 3 little tzaddikim, and B'ezrat Hashem, Ken Yirbu is the Rabbanit, will be healthy and strong, and will be blessed with more. The beauty is that when you have kids, it doesn't take very long for you to love them, but it does take a little while for you to know what you have, because all babies are born cute. All babies are born cute, generally speaking. If they're born normal and healthy, they're generally very cute, and even sometimes when they're not so healthy, they're still very cute. But to know really what you got as far as what kind of personality, what kind of traits, what kind of what they call midot, character traits, this baby has, is going to take a little while. And every parent will tell you that they want the best of themselves in this baby. So if a person is generous, they want their kids to be generous. If a person is a calm person and never really gets anxious, of course they want their kids to have that. If the person is generally a happy person, they want their kids to have that. If the person is very ambitious in positive ways, they want their kids to have that. If you ask any parent, do you want your kids to have the greed that you have? No. Do you want your kids to have the uncontrollable lust that you have? They're going to look at you like, are you crazy? No, obviously I don't want my kids to have all those bad things. What about the anger that you have? The last time you had anger and, you broke a laptop over somebody's head. The last time you cut off the guy in the middle of the highway and almost caused a 3-car accident. What about that? Do you want your baby to have that? They may hit you if you ask them that question. Why? Because nobody wants that. They don't even want it for themselves. They don't even want it for themselves. But of course, you tell them you want your kid to have that. No parent wants their kid to have those bad things. But the truth is that many times as the parents see their kids grow up, they start to really get to meet them. The cuteness changes, but stays more or less as their children, but the personality that the kid has comes out and stands out much more than the cuteness does. And you start getting to know what kind of kid do you really have? What kind of fruits did you bring into this world? Is this child a greedy child or a generous child? Is this child a child that is happy or miserable? Is this child clever or foolish? Sometimes you have parents make little videos of their kids, and of course Many people like to laugh at little kids because it's cute to see them fall in their little behinds or make the same mistake over and over again. There was a video that was sent to me recently where somebody said, "Look at how ambitious and persistent kids are," and they have this little infant eating a kiwi, and the kid, the little baby takes puts the kiwi in his mouth or her mouth. I'm not sure if it's a boy or a girl. Can't really tell when they're that little. And as soon as he puts it in his mouth, he starts crying. He makes this, this face like, "Oh, I can't believe it." He starts crying, and then literally 2 seconds later, he puts it back in his mouth, and he starts crying again. And you're like, "Is this kid crazy?" And then he does it again and again and again and again. And of course, it's cute, but at the same token, it's a little crazy. Like, why do you keep doing it? Well, that's because he's a baby. That's why. Now, these types of traits certainly don't tell you who the baby is, because most babies are going to do those things. You're going to find out once that kid starts speaking. You're going to find out more once that kid starts walking. You're going to find out once that kid starts developing the ability to communicate in a comprehensive manner. What kind of fruit did you bring into this world? And many times, parents are disappointed. They don't say it, but they certainly think it. That not only did the best parts of them not always necessarily go into that kid, but many times parents have told us that they don't even know who this kid is. They act completely differently than the parents do. They have these strange personality traits that are foreign to the parents. Sometimes they even look different. Very different. Now, of course, we can always say that this is adultery, but it's not necessarily always adultery like people think. And this is the segment of what the Ramban is going to uncover for us. Because there is a type of adultery that everyone is familiar with, but there's adultery that perhaps most people are not aware of. Adultery of the mind. And the Ramban goes into it and telling us that the thoughts will become one and the Shekhinah will rest with them, and they will bring forth according to them a pure form if there are positive thoughts. The last segment he completed by letting us know that if we have holy thoughts, the Shekhinah wants to be next to us, will produce good fruits. But of course, the average person will say, "Wait, are you sure about all this? Are you certain that these types of things really matter till this day?" So the Ramban, of course, nearly 800 years ago, already addressed the people that are going to doubt some of the words that have been said. And he says, "Ve'al titma al dvar zeh." Do not be surprised at this. For even the wise men of philosophy and science know that this is the nature of things. Here the Ramban is not just talking to you as one of the Rishonim, the leading sages of all time of Am Yisrael, but he's also talking to you as a doctor, as a philosopher, as a scientist. He was well established in many different fields, similar to the Rambam, Maimonides. Only difference is they lived, in essence, when the Rambam left this world. I believe the Ramban, Nachmanides, was, I think, somewhere around 5 or 6 years old. And he says, do not be surprised at this, that even the philosophers, the wise men among the sciences, know that this is the nature of things. That in accordance to the thoughts and ponderings of the man and his wife, at the time of their intimate union, will be determined the traits of the child for good or evil. See, here the Ramban is repeating a point, but he's going to take it a step further today. He's telling us, again, what you and your spouse have on your mind during that time of union will produce results, will produce fruits, whether they're going to be fruits you're proud of or suffer from, whether those fruits are going to be delicious, amazing, or they're going to be rotten, will take you some time to find out, perhaps. But those thoughts, for sure, will bear fruits, no less than the physical part. And he says that in his day, this was common knowledge, not just among the Jewish people, even among the non-Jews. I believe there are certain people that are learned in this aspect as well today and are familiar with it, perhaps not as much as in the past, but because people believe a little bit more in technology today and in their own warped minds and new ideas than they are in the old traditions and teachings that have been proven. But nonetheless, this is knowledge that exists in the world. Many times people put a lot of hope into the new sciences, the sciences that are, in so many words, trying to rediscover the wheel. And this fools a lot of people because the average person that's not learned in Torah, and needless to say, not learned in science, is sometimes very quickly fooled by science. But of course, the Torah says itself that the truth will come out even from underground. Emet me'eretz titzmach, that the truth will come out, will uproot from the ground, even if you try to cover it. For anyone that follows or perhaps heard this, there was a famous series of papers that came out about 15 years ago from Harvard. And these papers really transformed the behavior of how companies, in essence, operate, how they set up their forms for people to fill out, how they market certain things. Because a certain researcher, a so-called behavioral scientist that was a leader in her field, came out with reports about lies, about how lies affect the people that are filling out forms, the people that are buying your product. And she did this thorough report that was so groundbreaking that its findings literally transformed the way major corporations have been functioning for the last decade or so. Now, interestingly enough, none of what she said is actually true. How do we know? A new group of scientists decided to take what she said and test it, and test it, and test it, and test it. And after testing it multiple times and then giving it to different groups of scientists and researchers that were also well established, no one can reproduce the results of this Harvard established researcher that got notoriety and certainly got financing and money and fame, that major corporations like Coca-Cola and Walmart and all types of major companies of that stature literally transformed the way they operate because of this behavioral research about lies, about truth, only to find out 15 years later that the research about lies is a lie itself. The beauty about the Torah is that you can't get away with lies, because those that dedicate themselves and their lives to Torah, that means they've dedicated themselves to the truth. And anytime anybody is willing to challenge that truth with some new truth, they're going to look at it with every single ounce of their energy to make sure that this is indeed truth, and if it's false, they're not embarrassed to embarrass that falsehood, to bring shame to that falsehood. And that's why, as I've said in recent lectures, the reason why it's so simple to pinpoint the heretics, the wicked ones that are going against the Torah is simply put, they're never going to give you a valid source for anything that they say. They're just simply depending on people's ignorance. Because whatever is true has always been true. In the world of Torah, there is a record of that truth. So if somebody says something today that's part of the Torah, that means that I can track its footsteps. Where did it come from? Where did this truth come from? What is it based on? And then, of course, if it's true, that's based on teachings of another sage that brought the same idea. And that sage didn't bring it out of his own imagination. He had to base it out of teachings of another one, and another one, and another one, all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. And you can see, if you track any particular idea in the Torah, and you see the source, many times the sources that people quote are things like, where it's 500 years ago, 800 years ago, 1500 years ago. But generally speaking, all of those ideas are all rooted in the idea we all got in front of millions of people 3,334 years ago. And the oral Torah is there to elaborate what those ideas are. So if something is based on something you can track all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu and his Matan Torah, certainly this is something that's part of the truth. But if you cannot track it, not only you can't track it to Moshe Rabbeinu, but you can't even track it to any of the Rishonim from 800 years ago, like the Ramban, that's teaching us about Jewish intimacy. In fact, you cannot even track it to Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Shulchan Aruch. What they're saying is not according to halacha. But of course, they're going to assume that people are not only ignorant, but they're also stupid. And they're going to say, no, this is just part of Chassidut. Fine, Chassidut is part of the Torah. Where in Chassidut? Oh, the Rabbi said it. Fine, the Rabbi said it. Where did he say it? Oh, he said it in a speech. No problem. Which speech? Where? Oh, you really want to know? Oh, it's in that speech that happened in Chanukah. The Rebbe gave a lot of Chanukah speeches, and they're all documented. The Rebbe gave a lot of Parashat Shavua speeches, and they're all documented. Where? And that's when you're gonna see them run away like little mice. Why? The source doesn't exist. And if they ever bring you a source, if you're a Talmid Chacham and you know how to read, you know how to understand things properly, you see that what they said and what the source is are literally a world apart. Literally a world apart. This is important for a person to know that sometimes you're going to read things and you're not going to understand. And there's no shame with not understanding. There is a shame with claiming to understand when you really don't. There's even a bigger shame to pretend you understand by teaching things that don't actually exist. And that's why, Rabotai Karim, the Ran, in his Sichot Ran, he brings some of the basic foundations of Torah that are necessary for us to understand these ideas that the Ramban is bringing us. And he says in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi that one who knows nothing of the Torah, of all of these different teachings that are out there, but yet walks in a simple path and fears God's punishment, he's fortunate. Meaning, even if you're not well versed in the Torah, even if you're not well learned, as long as you fear punishment and thereby act accordingly, which means you're not going to do something that's the opposite of what the Torah says, that's the opposite of even what your inner intuition says, that's the opposite of what your rabbi told you to do, not because you necessarily always agree or you always understand, but simply put, you're afraid to do something wrong. And that's why he continues and he says, and the only way to begin to serve Hashem is through fear of retribution. Without that, it's impossible, says the Ran. This is literally 800 years ago. It's impossible to take the first step of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the tzaddikim must have such fear, since very few can devote themselves to God merely because they love Him so deeply. The main thing is fear of punishment, says the Ran. This is Sichot HaRan, 5th Sicha. And one can also serve Hashem out of the sense of awe, because He is so great and powerful. As the Zohar Kadosh says, this is a higher level of fear, but it's also very difficult to attain. For most people, the path to devotion is founded upon the simple fear of punishment. So anytime somebody tells you, stop talking about scary things or punishment or people are wrong or heretics, all that stuff, I'll stop when the sages stop. Are you greater than the Ran? Are you greater than the Rambam? Are you greater than the Ramban? Are you greater than all of the Rishonim? Are you greater than the Gemara? No. If you would dust under their feet, that would already be an achievement. Hence the reason why when the sages say something, we have to take it at face value, even if we don't necessarily understand, agree, or even want to. We simply have to take it and say, Baruch Hashem. The Rambam says, in his days, even the wise men among the Goyim knew this truth, that the thoughts and the ponderings of a man and his wife at the time of their intimate union will determine the traits of the child. And there is already brought to us in a Midrash. He brings a source, one that we've spoken about. There's a couple of similar stories. We'll bring both tonight, Bezrat Hashem. Where there was an incident of a royal consort who gave birth to a black son, even though she and the king were white and handsome, and the king wanted to kill her, until a wise man came and suggested that maybe it's due to her thinking about a black man at the time of their conjugal relations. They examined the matter and found black shapes on the wall decorations of the room that they had been intimate at that time, and she looked at those shapes at the time of their union, and precisely in the matter of the peeled rods of Yaakov, meaning our forefather, meaning that she looked at the parts of the body that are supposed to be covered, of these different images, of these different statues. As it's common, people make statues and sculptures where the people are naked. And this woman, that was the queen, she was looking at those parts of these black images, black statues, black sculptures, specifically at their organs, and imagining, and fantasizing. And so the Chacham that came to them and said to the king, listen, you don't need to kill her. You don't need to kill her. Why? She didn't cheat physically with any black man. She cheated in her mind. She fantasized. She fantasized in her mind about being with that. Now, in another Midrash, Midrash Tanchum, Parashat Nasso, is a similar story that will give us a little bit more chizuk. Based on the verse in the book of Numbers, chapter 5, verse 13, where it says, and it's hidden from our husband's eyes. This is to teach us that there are certain things that are hidden from the husband. And the Sifri says this is referring to a husband that's pretending to be blind to his wife's adultery so that he can use the right of the bitter waters to kill his wife. Meaning, he hates his wife and he wants to kill her. Why? Because divorce doesn't look so good to his good name. So he apparently gives her all the reasons in the world to cheat, and he pretends like he's not seeing. So once she does what she does, he could go take it to the Kohen Gadol and look like he's the victim. Another interpretation is that there's a guy that saw his wife doing things that are inappropriate, talking to other men, secluding herself with other men, but he overlooks it. Why? He loves her. He thinks he loves her. He's infatuated with her. He doesn't want to lose the money from the divorce. All types of different reasons that people have. In fact, one of the things that I think we've told you guys some time ago, when a woman has used kishuf, different forms of witchcraft on a man, one of the signs that a person will have that she has some type of control over him is that even if she does things that are outright wrong in the eyes of every normal human being, like being with another guy or doing all types of things with another person, and he is incapable of leaving her, there's usually, more times than not, there's a spiritual reason for it. It's not because of his feelings. And it's not because of her good looks either. It's usually because there's some type of kishuf involved. Because that's not a normal thing. A guy sees that his wife is cheating on him, or his girlfriend is cheating on him, or whatever relationship he has, cheating on him, and he's still not willing to leave her. There's something wrong there. There's something wrong. Now, the Midrash continues and says, our sages have taught us that when a woman is alone with her husband and he is having intercourse with her, if she sets her eyes on another at the time of their intercourse, there is no greater adultery for her than this. Here the Midrash says something absolutely shocking, but in so many words was said already. The Midrash is giving you things in the right perspective. You're with your husband. He loves you. You love him. Everything is good. You have kids. You don't have kids. Whatever the case is. You had some marriage problems. You had some hormonal problems. You had all types of problems. So your therapist told you, listen, to get yourself really in the mood, why don't you guys watch some pornography together? Why don't you guys watch some, love stories, movies on Netflix together? Look at all types of people making all types of sins in public without feeling any shame whatsoever. That's going to get you into the mood. And therefore, you'll be happy. Our Holy Torah says, she is intimate with her husband, but in her mind she's thinking about somebody else. There is no greater adultery than that. Meaning it's even worse than if she would have actually done something with somebody else. Well, obviously, if she actually did the act with somebody else, she's not allowed to be with her husband anymore. So how could it be that the thought is worse than the act itself? Because here the damage that it's causing, because it's in her mind, and needless to say, if it's in his mind, if he's thinking about another woman, the damage is not only not realized by them, but they won't even acknowledge it once the damage is staring at them in the face. As the example of this woman that looked at a black statue. She's white, her husband is white, but they have a black kid. Like, what's going on here? Are you going with one of the people that works for me? What's going on here? No, I didn't do nothing. Obviously, you did something. The kid's black. I'm not black. If I was black, I'd be happy he's black. But I'm not black. So where did he come from? You cheated. I'm going to kill you. So comes the sage, says, no. She cheated, but not what you think. She cheated in her mind. Our Torah says cheating in her mind is worse. Why? The damage, you're only going to find out over time. As the prophet Yechezkel says, the adulterous woman receives strangers instead of her husband. Which means literally under her husband. While she is with her husband, she's receiving strangers. She's with other people. Is there a woman who commits adultery while she's under her husband? No. It's simply that this is the kind of woman who encounters a certain man, sets her eyes on him, and then she has intercourse with her husband while her heart is on him. Shem Yishmor v'yatzil. She went to the store. She met a nice salesman. He's a salesman selling the dresses, selling the bags. She went to some fancy bag store. Every bag's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. She went to the shoe store. She wants to get one of these, fancy shoes where the heel itself is $500. Just the heel. You want to get the rest of the shoe? Add another $1,500. And who's selling it? A nice, good-looking young man. He's in shape. He's got cubes in his front and back. His hair stands in such ways it defies gravity. And he's so nice and smiley to the married woman. She says, no, I can't. Of course, even though, I can't. Why? I'm married, got kids, got this. No, I can't. You're cute, but no. He'll give her his business card. He'll even say, listen, call me with that wink of the devil himself. But she's going to hold herself back. She figures, I passed the test. I passed the test. I only got the shoe, not the shoe salesman. I only got the bag, and he's not inside it. She figures, I passed the test. Says the Midrash HaKadosh, you didn't pass the test. Why? The test just started. You allowed this person in your mind. That means he's going to be on your mind in the most inappropriate times possible. The times that you're intimate with your husband. And more times than not, you will find that this very same woman that allowed some guy, some salesman, some pop star, some whoever that she met at the coffee shop, they gave her the time of day, that served her with a smile, that said thank you when he got the tip. She allowed him inside the Kodesh Kodeshim called the mind. And she, all of a sudden, becomes in the mood with her husband. And she figured I passed the test. So, what if I'm, what's the problem? I'm allowed to be with my husband. Yes, with your husband. Both physically and mentally. But what happens is, she goes with her husband, but she's thinking of Steve. She goes with her husband, but she's thinking of Jose. She's going with her husband, and she's with some unknown person that's half her age. He's on our mind. And HaShem have mercy if that seed brings a baby to the world. Why? That seed and that egg will produce something with Steve's signature on it. Jose is going to have his little picture in that neshama that's coming. And even if there is no baby coming out of it, there's still a spark. There's still a spark that's created with every act of intimacy between a man and his wife. That spark is either a spark of Kedusha or Tuma. She's thinking about Jose and Steven, the unknown guy at the coffee shop. It's certainly not going to be a spark of Kedusha. And says the Midrash, she's accepting men while she's with her husband. Shem Yishmor V'Yatzil. Such as the story, says the Midrash, about the king of the Arabs. The king of the Arabs, who asked Rabbi Akiva. This story is the opposite of the last one, where he says to Rabbi Akiva, Mr. Rabbi Akiva, the people that are not Jewish don't realize that when someone is a rabbi, you don't call him Mr. anymore. You just call him Rabbi. It replaces the Mr. Same concept where if somebody's a doctor, you don't call somebody Mr. Doctor. But it's funny, sometimes people say, Sir Rabbi, what do you think of such and such? Anyway, Mr. Rabbi Akiva, I'm black, and my wife is black, says the Arab. But she has born to me a white son. Shall I kill her because she has played the harlot while under me? Says, doesn't make any sense. I'm black, she's black, both young and beautiful, but she brought me this little white baby. Looks like he came from Tennessee. Should I kill her? Why? That's how we do it here. Wife cheats. The end. Why is he asking Rabbi Akiva? He's not a Jew. Apparently he loved her. Apparently this wasn't just a regular woman. This was a king. He was able to get as many women and however many women he wanted. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin says 10 measures of promiscuity came to the world. 9 of them were given to the Arabs. Meaning that the most promiscuous people in the world have been the Arabs. And you're going to say, wait a minute, that defies logic. Because from what you see on TV, what you see on the news, which they allow you to see, you see the Arabs are modest people. The ones that are religious, looks like they're the most modest people in the world. Their wives are walking around with a tent covering them. Some of them that are really fanatic, you can barely even see the eyes. So how is that promiscuity? Where would we go if we don't have our sages to tell us the stories and give us the real facts? Because the Gemara says that Ishmael, his people are the most immodest, most promiscuous, I should say. Most promiscuous. Out of 10 measures of promiscuity, 9 were to the Arabs. Now, some of my Arab friends that are watching this shurim, don't get offended. I'm not making this up. This is what's written. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be that way. Certainly every person can overcome what he was taught that was wrong, could overcome what he believed that was incorrect, could overcome whatever negativity he had. But generally speaking, that's what it says. Now, of course, the Gemara says it. That's enough. But we need some sources that happened later to prove it. Years ago, there was a kitrug, prosecution in heaven against the Jewish people in Morocco. This was written in a book, Stories by the Baba Sali, called Sidna Baba Sali. And the Baba Sali told this story. And he says years ago there was a evil decree in heaven against the Jewish people. Why? Because the Sar, the angel of Ishmael, was mocking the Jewish people, saying, look at that. The Arabs are my people are much more modest than the Jewish people. Much more modest. They're walking around completely covered. And people think, oh yeah, that's because they're modest. Baba Sali says, no. It's not an accident that they're so extreme with their women's modesty and coverage. Because the reality is, according to our Torah, if they didn't do it, they'd literally, if the women weren't that modest, they'd simply rape each other. And one of the proofs was in this story, where the Baba Sali says that there was once a king, a new Moroccan king that was secular, that didn't like religion. And he passed an evil decree. And the decree was, any woman that comes out with the full outfit, covering herself like the tradition of the religious Muslims, will be publicly embarrassed as we tear her clothes off in public until she's like the way she was born. Of course, Morocco is full of Muslim people. People were shocked. What are they going to do? This is the king. In the beginning, nobody wanted to leave. The women, what do? First woman that came out, says the Baba Sali. First woman that came out according to the definition of the decree, which was walk around without sleeves, like a tank top. Literally, minutes after she walked out of her house, without her typical garment that's covering herself, minutes after she's walking around without sleeves, she's attacked by a bunch of different Arabs looking to rape her, but to such an extent that they start biting her until they killed her. Now, this obviously wasn't the expected result by the king or anybody else, but everyone realized exactly as what the Torah says. They got this high level of promiscuity, and it's not a coincidence that they protect themselves from that high level of promiscuity by simply going to the complete extreme. No one wants their wife to be raped. No one wants their wife to be looked at by anybody else. Why? Because they know that people can't control themselves. They simply can't. And one of the sages, the Mekubalim from the Abu Chatzira family, told this story, and it went through the different generations as the Baba Sali told it to his students. And this story happened after the battle in heaven, where Ishmael's angel, was in essence mocking the Jewish people that they're immodest, and how his people are modest, and therefore the decree in heaven was, okay, so prove it. And they brought this king into the world, who brought this decree in order to prove the truth of the Torah and defend Am Yisrael in heaven. Once it was shown that this modesty is really fake modesty, it's really modesty out of necessity, not modesty out of actual righteousness, the decree against Am Yisrael for lack of modesty was in essence cancelled. Not that it allows Am Yisrael to be immodest, but at the very least, we're not being compared to them. Now, the Midrash continues and says that this black king thought that his wife cheated, and he asked Rabbi Akiva what to do. Rabbi Akiva says, are there any images within your house that are white or black? And he says, yeah, I have white sculptures in the house. Literally the opposite of the other story. And he says to him, well, when you were busy with her, says Rabbi Akiva to the king, when you were busy with her, she set her eyes on the images and bore a child like the images. Now, if you're surprised over this matter, learn from Yaakov, our forefathers' flock, as it's written in the Torah. In those days, even the Gentiles believed in the Torah. There wasn't a dispute like there is today between the Arabs and the Jews about what the truth of the Torah is. Today the Arabs, the reason why you're not going to see debates between Arabs and rabbis is because the Arabs believe that we changed the Torah. They believe in the Torah, but they believe the Torah is something else. It's not what we have. That's why there's no debates between the two. But anyway, the Rabbi Akiva says to him that in Sefer Bereshit, chapter 30, verse 39, it says that since the flock conceived by the steeks, the flock bore streaked, speckled, and spotted young. That's where we learned that what the sheep saw led to what they produced. The king of the Arabs thanked Rabbi Akiva and sent him on his way. And thus, when any woman, says the Midrash, is alone with a husband in holiness, in the end, he produces righteous children from her. And thus we find it so in the case of Chana, who was alone with her husband in holiness, and so the Holy One, blessed be He, did not deprive her of her reward. Rather, He gave her a righteous son like Moshe Rabbeinu. As it says in the prophet Jeremiah chapter 15 verse 1, that even if Moshe and Shmuel was the son of Chana, even if Moshe and Shmuel stood before me, meaning HaShem himself is comparing the two, where Shmuel was the equivalent of Moshe in his generation. It also says in Psalm 99 verse 6, Moshe and Aaron were among his priests, and Shmuel was among those who call upon his name, meaning that Shmuel is being compared to both Moshe and Aaron. And also, the Midrash says, Chana said in the book of Samuel, Sefer Shmuel 1, chapter 1, verse 27, for this child did I pray, and the Lord has granted me my permission. Why? Because he was sown in holiness, meaning that the intimacy between Chana and her husband was pure holiness. Holiness of the act itself physically, holiness of the mind. And the Holy One, blessed be He, said, in this world I abhor all of those people, because they are from the unclean seed. But I have chosen you, because you are from the true seed. As the prophet Jeremiah said, and I planted you as a choice vine, all of it from the true seed. And also in the book of Sefer Dvarim, chapter 7, verse 6, and the Lord your God has chosen you. And also in the future to come, I am choosing only you, because you are a holy seed. As the prophet Isaiah said in chapter 65, verse 23, they shall not labor in vain, nor bear children in terror, because they are a seed blessed of the Lord, and their offspring along with them. So here we see, Rabotai Yekarim, that the thoughts of sin are worse than the sin, as the Gemara in Masechet Yoma says, where if a person doesn't act, typically, even if he wants to deny it at first, he knows that there's going to be an outcome from it. There's going to be an outcome from it. But that's usually when if he steals something, if he says something false, if he does anything inappropriate, that he's, in essence, admitting that this is his own actions. He's admitting to the significance of his actions. He knows that there's a cause and effect. Thoughts, though, on the other hand, the average person does not think that his thoughts have that much weight. The average person does not think that his thoughts actually create. So he thinks, whatever I think about, what difference is it to my wife if she doesn't know what I'm thinking? And she thinks, whatever I'm thinking about, what difference is it to my husband if he doesn't know what I think? According to him, he is feeling pleasure. According to her, she's feeling pleasure. So what difference does it make what I think about? Says our Holy Torah, in the Midrash Tanchum and in multiple other places, the worst form of adultery is adultery of the mind. Why? Because no one is expecting the damage that's going to come. No one is even expecting it. No one is prepared for it. No one even understands what happened, that once they see it, they don't even know how they own this. Like, how did this come from me? As Yaakov says to Yosef HaTzadik on his deathbed, when he sees the prophecy of what's going to come out of Menashe and Ephraim, he sees that eventually some Reshaim are going to come from them. They're not all going to be tzaddikim. And he says, who are these? Not who are these, the grandkids. Who are these that are coming from them? How are they coming from this? Sometimes people look at their kids and like, who are these? Where did this kid come from? Where did he get this horrible character trait? How does he look like this? How does he look like this? What'd you watch that day before you were together with your wife? Oh, you had a conversation with your secretary? You asked her what she did this weekend? You asked her what she's going to do next weekend? You asked her how is it going with her new boyfriend? What'd you think about when you were with your wife? Guess what? Those thoughts from that little meeting you had with your secretary, even though it was only conversation, wasn't an act, but in your mind it was. Your mind produced. Your mind produced. Oh, you listened to that new famous consultant, marriage consultant that charges $1,000 an hour, tells you to watch movies before you and your husband are together, or even during, and then you're surprised that a little pug came out of you. You're surprised that the baby you created is en lo guf, en lo dmut haguf. He has no body or likeness of a body. He is literally like something that's of a different planet. Why are you surprised? What'd you think about? What'd you think about when you were together with your husband? Oh, that's scary. It's not scary. It's a warning. It's a warning for people that haven't produced yet all of their fruits. Whatever you produced, we're going to talk about it in a second. Whatever you produced already, there's nothing you can do about it as far as going back. You can't put it back in the belly. Certainly you can fix it, which we'll talk about in a moment. But as far as what you didn't produce, that's what you need to know this for. Now, of course, a person's going to say, wait a minute, but what about Yaakov and his twin brother Esau? Rivka was Kodesh Kodeshim. How did Esau come out? Well, first of all, you should know that Esau had the level of holiness, the spark of holiness within him that had the potential to be even higher than Yaakov Avinu. He was supposed to be a father to half the tribes. It was supposed to be 6 to Yaakov and 6 to Esau. Until they were teenagers, they looked exactly alike, with the difference in color of hair, exactly alike. Both were yeshiva bachurim, both seemed to be great kids. Everybody saw them as these are the frum kids, these are the future Gdolei Ador. But Esau didn't want to continue connecting what he learned from his father, what he learned from his grandfather, Avraham, to his actions. Why? He wanted to follow his desires. And once he started following his desires, everything fell off from there. This is the reason why when the son of Dan killed him and chopped off Esau's head next to Me'arat HaMachpelah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the head of Esau to roll in to Me'arat HaMachpelah and be buried inside the Kiruv of Machpelah, along with the patriarchs. Why? Because his head had a lot of holiness in it, had a lot of Torah in it. The body, though, didn't fulfill it. Therefore, the body was thrown in the garbage. Wasn't buried inside Me'arat HaMachpelah. So the key is not just necessarily to have the knowledge, but to act on the knowledge. And when a person has negative thoughts, it's different than having Torah thoughts. Because the negative thoughts, typically, a person thinks, listen, if I have negative thoughts, but I don't act on them, it's no big deal. If I have holy thoughts, and I don't act on them, that's still good. Why? Because it'll influence my actions, it'll influence my attitude. But that's what they don't understand. Your holy thoughts are good, but if they don't follow up with action, they're almost useless. They're almost useless. If your holy thoughts are not followed up with actions, they're almost useless, like Esau. On the other hand, the impure thoughts, the thoughts of immorality, the thoughts of promiscuity, the thoughts of pornography, the thoughts of evil, all of those thoughts, even if you don't act on them, they produce evil. Certainly there's even more evil produced if you act on them. But even if you don't act on them, they produce a certain level of evil. If you have them at the worst times. And that's what a lot of people simply don't understand. You had thoughts of another woman while you were intimate with your wife, you committed adultery of the mind, and you will see the fruits from that. The impure fruits from that inappropriate thought that you got from a movie, that you got from some woman you met at the cafe, that you got from some promiscuous relationship you had, that you got from all of those things, they will bear fruits, and they're going to be rotten. They're going to be damaged. They're going to be disgusting. They're going to be filthy. They're going to make you want to regret the day you were born. And most of the time, you're not even going to connect the two. You're not going to connect, where did these things come from? Why did I just have this thing happen to me? Why is this? Why is that? Why? Because the average person doesn't think so much about the value of his evil thoughts. The same concept goes to a woman. She thinks, oh, what's the big deal that I talked to the guy at the Home Depot? He thinks I'm pretty. Why, I can't talk to a guy? I'm not doing anything, it's just talk. He told me about his wife and kids and how he doesn't really get along with her sometimes. I tell him about my husband and kids and how I don't get along with them sometimes. And we talk, we commiserate. He's my friend. We're platonic. No platonic, atomic. No platonic relationships in a healthy life. Only atomic. Because whether you follow up with action or not, it certainly creates a damage. Certainly creates a damage. And that's one of the things that many women do not understand. They allow these different people into their minds and they think, listen, as long as I don't do anything, what's the big deal? If he's on your mind, he's going to enter your mind at the most inappropriate times. And don't be surprised if the kid that comes out of you is going to want to work at Home Depot, is going to want to be like this superstar you met, is going to want to be like whatever movie you saw. And unfortunately, with all the negativity that follows it. And that's, Rabotai, one of the things that the Ramban is trying to tell us here. And then he follows up with even more astonishing information, where he says, don't be astonished, for there is even more wondrous things in nature itself. A man was bitten by a rabid dog and contracts rabies from the bite. Because the hallucinations that he then has, people can't give him water, for he immediately imagines that he's seeing many tiny mad dogs in the water. And that's why the doctors say to give him water to drink through a straw, because that way he can't see the water. But the guy just was bit by rabies, and he starts hallucinating all types of things. Everything looks like rabid dogs to him, including in the water. Similarly, he imagines that he sees many small evil dogs in his urine. But if he were to filter the urine through a sieve, nothing would be found. There's no dogs in the urine. But he said, no, they're right there. Look, he's going to bite me, go. Obviously, everybody's saying, oh, this guy's, poor guy. He's got a serious problem. He's got a disease, got rabies. But, says the Ramban, something extraordinary. All this, you heard, it's new, but the extraordinary didn't come yet. The Ramban then says, if they would let the water stand for an hour in a glass vessel, they would see little puppies there, as a result of the many thoughts and confusion which he pictured in his heart. See, here the Ramban is telling us something absolutely shocking. Up to now, we figured if somebody does something evil, he goes with a prostitute, and Shlomo HaMelech promises to anybody that goes with prostitutes, Proverbs chapter 6, verse 26, Shlomo HaMelech says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make sure that you're going to be begging for bread one day. You're going to lose your money. Maybe not today, maybe not even tomorrow or next year. Maybe it's going to look like you're a multimillionaire for a little while. Give it some time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays all of his bills. People that go to prostitutes eventually go to poverty. So he figured if he does actual prostitution, he goes with promiscuous women, he does all these things, if you say that brings impurity to the world, I understand. Even the most secular person understands. If you say that she looked at a guy and then she thought about that guy while she's with her husband and that created all types of problems, understand. Average person understands. Why? She looked at some black statue. She's with her little white as bread husband. The child comes up with a little blackness to him. You're like, whoa, what's going on? Understand. Fine. Don't worry about political correctness. It's not part of the series. You get it for free. Now, third option is what we're hearing here. The Ramban says it's not just what he did that leads to results. It's not just what he or she thinks that leads to results. It's even pure imagination. Something that doesn't even exist will lead to actual creation. The guy got bitten by a dog that has rabies. Automatically, anyone that had any of these types of experiences, whether it's a snake bite, a rabid dog, chas v'shalom, rape, things like that, automatically they're scared of that very same thing. A woman that was raped, generally speaking, for a period of time, she cannot be with anybody. Even if she's married to somebody and she's happy overall, she can't be with them. Why? She's traumatized. A person that got bitten by a snake, you even tell them the word snake, they lose their mind. Person bitten by a dog, if he doesn't have rabies, you're fortunate, but still traumatized. I remember when I was a kid, got bitten by a dog, I wasn't exactly so happy about being next to dogs for a little while. Why? Because again, you get bit by a dog, it's not so much fun. Now, if that dog has rabies, there's something else. Why? It creates all types of hallucinations. And the Ramban says, those hallucinations are going to create something. Meaning that the guy is hallucinating that the water has dogs in it. The guy is hallucinating that even his own urine has dogs in it. Obviously, there isn't. But he says because he really believes it and he's imagining it, he is now going to create different things in his body that even the germs or whatever that's coming out of his body will actually start taking the shape of these creatures. Meaning it's not just lust he acted on will lead to lustful thoughts. Lust she thought about lead to lust. No. It's outright imagination. Something out of nothing still has the power to affect the physicality. Hence the reason why the Ramban then says, understand this well and see how great is the extent of the influence of the power of thought in the time of marital union. Here we're seeing something truly unbelievable, how powerful our thoughts are. Certainly a person wants to think good and therefore it could be good. But many times people could be optimistic, but bad stuff happens. Why? Because good and bad is determined by HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Having a positive mind certainly can affect the actions that you do if you're a positive mind in a positive way, according to the Torah, and not some fantasy where a person thinks it's positive to meet a bunch of women that are promiscuous or something like that. That's not positive. That's psychotic. Or she's positive that if she meets a guy that's going to pay her rent, that's a positive thing. There's nothing positive about that. That's simply selling yourself, but not calling yourself a prostitute. So a person has to understand that, yes, your thoughts certainly can affect reality, but it's not necessarily in all the places that people think or apply it to. Rather, it affects a person and where it matters most, and where it's going to have the most significant impact on the rest of your life. Where if you're thinking inappropriate thoughts because of what you see on the screen, what you communicate with, the way you carry yourself, that will produce results in reality. That thought will produce a reality. But even if a person doesn't want to think that this is 100%, it can be proven scientifically. Simply put, the Ramban says in his day, I don't know if this is necessarily still applicable today, of course certain things in nature have changed, but the Ramban here is now talking to you as a scientist, not as a rabbi. He's giving you a scientific reality of that time. And obviously he's a worldwide renowned scientist of his day. He's not going to walk around making statements and everyone's going to make fun of him. He's telling you, that guy that has rabies, you could test out the urine that he says has dogs in it, and you're not going to find. But you give it an hour, you start seeing things look like dogs. Why? His imagination is influencing what's coming out of his body. His imagination, not the rabies, his imagination is influencing what's coming out of his body. Now, the Ramban also wrote this in the Torah, in commentary on the Torah, in Parashat Chukat, chapter 21, verse number 9. We just read it recently. Am Yisrael complains. HaShem hates complainers. Hates when Am Yisrael complains. Wants to destroy them because of their complaints. This time, he punishes them by sending them a bunch of serpents. A bunch of serpents biting people, and people are dying left and right. Solution, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, make yourself a serpent out of metal and put it on top of the mountain so they can look at it. So the Ramban comes over there and says, why did he tell Moshe Rabbeinu to make a serpent? Moshe Rabbeinu chose to make the serpent out of bronze because Hashem didn't specify how to make this serpent, so he made it out of bronze. But it was Hashem that told him to make a serpent. Why make a serpent? Why didn't he tell him pray? Pray more, Moshe. When you prayed 515 times, I almost destroyed the world in Parashat Vayetchanan. If you would have prayed one more time, I would have had to destroy the world. Because I couldn't let you go into Eretz Yisrael. Literally, the heavens were shaking, the world was breaking because of Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer. So if Moshe Rabbeinu can pray, his prayer is so powerful, where all of Am Yisrael was praying for Miriam to heal from her tzarat, from the punishment Hashem gave her, all of Am Yisrael is praying. They're all reading Tehillim, they're all saying Kaddish, they're all saying the Tefillah, they're all praying, they're all fasting, everything. Nothing is working. Moshe Rabbeinu says 5 words. El narafan Allah. Miriam heals on the spot. On the spot. Just imagine the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu. So why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say, Moshe, what, you want Am Yisrael to be okay? You want them to stop dying? Pray. No. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu, you want them to heal? Make a serpent. Make a sculpture of a serpent and put it on top of the mountain. The Ramban asked this question, why? Simple. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to teach us. I decided that the serpent will bite you, will hurt you, to punish you. Naturally, the way the world works, when you get hurt from something, you're traumatized because you think it's always going to hurt you. But I want to teach you, it's not the snake that kills. It's the sin that kills, says Rabbi Chanina. And therefore, I'm going to use that same image that you're scared of to cure you. The snake that you're scared of, that killed your friend, killed your uncle, killed your cousin, go look at it on a statue. That's the cure. That's the cure. Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. Exactly. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to get you closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because when you look at that serpent, you're going to see the heavens behind it, and you're going to be reminded of who decided that this snake kills, and that serpent that's made out of bronze cures. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. So here we see, Rabotai Yekarim, that the Ramban is telling us that you have yourself a situation where you may not think it's a big deal. Sort of like how that researcher from Harvard University didn't think it was a big deal to lie to the whole world and tell them that she's an expert about lies. And how, if they listen to her behavioral science research, they'll know how to do better. What she didn't tell them, that she herself was not an expert about lies. She was an expert in lying. But our Holy Torah says, our Torah is emet. Our Torah is always emet. When you have a mind that doesn't agree with the Torah, that's because you've allowed sheker, you've allowed lies to infiltrate it. You've allowed the lies to go into your mind and tell you that lies are truth and truth is falsehood. That it's good to be promiscuous and being honest, ethical, monogamous, monotheistic, having a true faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and knowing that enod milvado, knowing that there is nothing else but Him. Your mind is going to tell you, no, that's not good. All the other stuff is better. Even though the other stuff doesn't have any successful track record, while HaKadosh Baruch Hu does. So, when a person thinks that their thoughts are not going to lead to any type of negativity, the Ramban is telling us, not only does it lead to negativity, but it literally could destroy your life. That 5-minute conversation, 5-minute movie clip, 5-minute show, 5-minute conversation could literally change the rest of your life. And that's what he says, when a person allows these things into their mind carelessly, they have no idea the ramifications. In summation, he says, if a person has good and pure thoughts. Those thoughts will bear fruit. And in that seed will be formed according to those good ponderings and will grow to be righteous kids. And regarding this, the prophet Jeremiah says, before I formed you in the womb, I already knew you. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to Jeremiah, I already knew that you are going to be a righteous person, that I'm going to make a prophet, that I'm going to have a relationship with, that I'm going to utilize to rebuke Am Yisrael, to deliver the truth of the Torah. I already knew at the time you were created, because your parents created you with purity. You came from a pure source. Because you became a pure source, I selected you out of everybody else. So when a person has these types of thoughts, those thoughts literally engrave an image, paint an image into what comes out of their body. In the case of a man, it's the seed. In the case of a woman, it's what happens in her uterus. And says the Ramban, and the truth is that before he is formed, the good intention is prepared to form him. And then the Shekhinah combines with the pure thought, as our sages said in Gemara Masechet Kiddushin, page 40a. A good thought is joined to the deed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning that the Gemara is telling us that if a person has holy thoughts during his intimacy, she has holy thoughts during her time of intimacy. They're thinking about mitzvot. They're thinking about holiness. They're thinking about tzaddikim. They're thinking about purity. They're thinking about serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're thinking about the beauty of the Torah. Certainly, part of them is enjoying the pleasure, still has to communicate and make sure that the other person is in line, in sync, enjoying physically as well as spiritually. But their mind is pure. It's not thinking about any filth they saw on a screen. They're not thinking about any filth that some doctor told them to think about or to watch. They're not thinking about anybody else but their spouse. She's thinking about her husband and only her husband. He's thinking about his wife and only his wife. She's thinking he's the best and I love him. He thinks she's the best and I love her. She's the most beautiful. She's the most wonderful. She's the Eshet Chayil. She's the gift of all gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. She thinks he's the gift of all gifts. I can't believe I merited to have him. And they're completely enamored with each other. And they're enamored with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that gave them the gift to be able to serve him while enjoying it. And how this holy Torah is a gift that is simply impossible to describe of how amazing it is. And how fortunate we are to be Jewish people. And how fortunate we are to be servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And how fortunate we are to be able to produce more good in the world. And they're thinking about these pure things. The Gemara says, at that moment, the Shekhinah itself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shekhinah, says, hey, that's holiness. I'm going there. The Shekhinah looks at the holiness and says, I gotta go there. Why? Because the Gemara says, when the Shekhinah sees good, it joins it. You literally have the teachings of the sages from the Mishnah. Ish, Isha, Zachu, Shekhinah Beneim. When a man and a woman merited, the Shekhinah comes between them. Overall, we thought, yeah, of course, when there's shlom bayit between the husband and the wife, the Shekhinah comes, it heals all wounds with its medical, financial, whatever it is. If you have holiness in your house, everything will be resolved ultimately in a positive way. But here we see it go another level, where a person now can have his pure mind, her pure mind, literally bring the Shekhinah between them during the act of intimacy. Because she's thinking of pure things, she's thinking of her husband, she's thinking of holiness. Because he's thinking of his wife, of holiness and purity, the Shekhinah says, I want to be between them. I want to be between them because that's good, and that's where I go. I go where there's good. This, Rabotai, literally is something that you will see the fruits from it in extraordinary ways, same way as the opposite. And that's what the Ramban finalizes this point with. And he says that if a man, on the other hand, thinks of sinful and ugly matters, inappropriate, sinful, immodesty, promiscuity, filth, if he thinks those things, if she thinks those things, then the fetus is founded in an evil and ugly matrix and is destined to be wicked and foul. And concerning such a child, it says in the name of David HaMelech, chapter 58, verse 4 in Psalms, the wicked are estranged already from the womb. Where here we see that something that we've heard multiple times in this series come to life in a little bit more significant form. Where on one hand, the Ramban is telling us, you have these pure thoughts. You think of your husband and your husband alone. You think of your wife and your wife alone. You think of pure things. You think of holy things. You're going to produce holiness. Even if you don't necessarily think of yourself as holy, you're going to produce holiness because the Shekhinah is coming there and joining you. On the other hand, if you think of the filth that you saw in the past, or you saw today, or you saw last week, or the person you talked to, or the person you want to talk to, and in so many words, places that you're not supposed to be are already in your mind, that's also going to produce fruits. But those fruits are going to be rotten. Those fruits are going to be expensive, because the child that will come out of there will be one that has horrible traits. And the price for that is very high, because that conversation you had with your secretary or with some clerk or whoever you're not really supposed to talk to and think about, it's not only that it's adultery on your spouse, it's not only a betrayal of the power that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, but it's literally choosing your kid to be born with a defect that he or she will have to suffer with for a long time. Because you chose to watch some movie, you chose to talk to some people, that child now has to live with that defect, that anger, that lust that's uncontrollable, that attraction to heresy, that attraction to things that are abnormal. Those things he didn't have to be born with. You chose those things because you thought about people and things that are relating to it. And now the kid has to struggle his whole life with this. Now, of course, this all sounds negative for those that are thinking, what can I do about it? I already did it. I didn't know this. There's good news. And good news is even better when there is solid proof of the most extreme way to show it works. Our sages teach us that lust can take a person out of this world. Jealousy can take a person out of this world. Glory, seeking glory, can take a person out of this world. A person that learns Torah for the wrong reasons, it becomes poison instead of a cure. But it also says the opposite. It says that if a person cleaves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, cleaves to the Talmidei Chachamim, does everything that he or she can to follow the Torah to the best possible, the Torah turns into Sam Chaim, the potion and the cure for life, the cure to all ailments. The snake can turn into a cure rather than the disease. It's not coincidental that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Moshe Rabbeinu, or commanded Moshe Rabbeinu, to make the serpent into the statue that cures everybody, and 3,300 years later the symbol for medicine is the snake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses all of these things. He can choose the same thing to be a cure and the same thing to be a poison. It all depends on who and what. And if a person uses the Torah the right way, they could cure not only their own mistakes, they could even cure the mistakes that other people made. Years ago, there was a couple. This couple didn't exactly follow the Torah, didn't exactly follow the mitzvot, and figured that they could do whatever they want to do without any consequence. They thought whatever they thought. They spoke whatever they spoke. They ate whatever they ate, without necessarily thinking there's any problem, any consequence. This action brought a child, but they knew that this child is not something that they would ever expect the second they met the child, because the child had Down syndrome. Now, he had a horrific case of Down syndrome. Some of the doctors said it's one of the worst kinds. You know, some of them have a little bit of different face, certain deformities. The tongue may be sticking out a little bit. His tongue was completely out. His deformity was extreme. Now, these so-called excuse for parents that did what they did, thought what they thought, continued in their ways and said they don't want any consequences for their actions. So what they do, they abandon the baby, simply disappeared. This baby doesn't have anybody looking out for him. Nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took responsibility for this baby. There was a woman, righteous woman, never had any kids, always wanted one, was waiting to adopt somebody. Wanted her own kid, but the blessing didn't come. And she figured that she's going to adopt somebody. But of course, it's not so easy to find someone to adopt. It's not so easy to deal with all of it. After this baby with Down syndrome, severe case, came up, she got the call. She didn't want to adopt a kid with Down syndrome. That wasn't the plan. She wanted a normal kid. Beautiful little kid, playing around, jumping around. She could play with him. She could teach him. But she says that as soon as she saw this baby, she knew it was an impossible case. She felt it was her responsibility to take him and use the Torah to fix him. And from that moment on, this righteous woman took the responsibility of taking care of this kid much better than his parents ever did and ever could. And she took him as a son, and she raised him, and she committed herself to him completely, to teach him how to talk, to teach him how to walk, and to teach him about the source of all cures, the Torah itself. Now, of course, people thought she was crazy. I mean, you're waiting for a kid for so long. Out of all the kids, you get this one? Why? Get a normal kid. Just, wait a little longer or until somebody else comes up. Why this? No, this is it. Yeah, but it's such a difficult life. I mean, not exactly rich. You're not exactly have all the time in the world. Like, why? This is it. The Torah is going to cure him. And that's what she believed. And she had him listen to Shiur Torah, get blessings from tzaddikim, go to different rabbis, get blessings. She would read to him. She would literally spend every waking hour with this boy. And after an extraordinary amount of mesirut nefesh, as he developed, certain things got worse, certain things got better. And then she met a rabbi. And she asked him if he can help her to teach him Torah. And the rabbi said yes. Now, typically, when someone has Down syndrome or any type of issue, they put him in a special ed class with people just like him. So you'll see a class full of people with autism, Down syndrome, people that are just like them. This rabbi said, no, we're not going to cure him by putting him around people that are just like him. We're going to cure him by putting him next to people that are just like me, that are just like Bnei Torah. He's going to be part of the Gemara Shiur. He's going to be part of the Halacha Shiur. He's going to be part of the Parashat Shavua Shiur. He's going to be part of all of it. He's going to be around people that learn Torah. That's what he's going to be around. Let the Torah fix him. And that's what they did. This little boy sat next to Chachamim and listened, and little by little understood more and more. Little by little, physically he would change. Of course, certain therapies, whatever the mom can do, she did. But the biggest part of the cure was his learning Torah. Little by little, he started becoming involved. He'd pick up the books. He'd put them away. Once in a while, he'd have an idea. Little by little, he started understanding things on his own. He started learning. He started learning Gemara. He started completing Masechtot. And he's already at a point today where, aside from his looks, you wouldn't know there's anything wrong with him. He speaks, acts normal. In fact, he's ready to get married with a normal woman. He doesn't want a woman with Down syndrome. He says, I'm special. Why would I need somebody that's... I'm a Talmid Chacham. And he's right. He's about to complete the Shas. He's a person that we saw with our own eyes the Torah cure him. Because the rabbi was Rabbi Ephraim's father. And he, along with the mother and the young man named Raziel, were interviewed multiple times. We have the interview on our channel. It's in Hebrew, but it has English subtitles. You can just type in Down syndrome or Raziel on our channel, and you'll see this extraordinary story being told from him, from his mom, that's much better than the biological mom that he had. But you see, Rabotai, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed us to hear these stories, it's one thing. But he allowed us to see these stories. He allowed us to have a record of these stories that we can utilize in order to strengthen our emunah and know that regardless of what I did in my past and what kids came out of me, I didn't have pure thoughts, I didn't have pure deeds, I didn't have pure actions. Okay, fine. But if HaKadosh Baruch Hu fixed a kid that was abandoned by his biological parents, was completely deformed, Down syndrome, a horrible case, to the point where today he's on the verge of completing the entire Talmud Bavli. What most grown men in their 50s and 60s have not done. He's completing in his 20s. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu can cure him with the Holy Torah, with learning, with following, certainly all of the mistakes that we've made could also be fixed with the same exact cure. The Torah can be a cure for all ailments, or it could be a poison. If you follow it, but only according to your likings, only according to your desire, it turns into poison. If you follow it to the best of your ability to fulfill HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will and make his will as if it's your will, then the Torah turns into the cure of all ailments, literally, whether that is an inability to find somebody to marry, an inability to bring children into the world, an inability to function properly, an inability to pay for things. Any deficiency that a person has can be cured by simply following the Torah. Now, if learning Torah is such a cure, understand this well, that publicizing the Torah, supporting the publicity of the Torah, by helping other people learn Torah, do mitzvot, helping more people understand the truth of the Torah, supporting Kiruv, supporting specific shurim just like this one. How much more is the reward for that, as a person is not only benefiting from the cure, but they now have become a distributor of the cure. In this week's parasha, Parashat Pinchas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands us to kill the Midyanim, to destroy them completely. He didn't tell us to destroy completely anybody else, but he told us to destroy them completely. The Mefarshim say that's because the Midyanim caused us to sin. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, Gadol ha'machtio yoter me'ahorgo. Someone who causes other people to sin is worse than a murderer. And its opposite is true as well. Someone that causes another person to do a mitzvah is even greater than somebody that did the mitzvah himself. So of course we could do whatever we can to apply most of this, all of this to our life. But don't lose hope if you can't do all of it, because you can get even a greater benefit for supporting it, for sharing it, for distributing it, to get the rest of the world to know that HaShem Emet and His Torah is Emet. Thank you very much for learning with me. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless each and every single one of you to get rid of the adultery in the marriages, the adultery that is in our minds, the sins that have destroyed many families, and to adopt the Holy Torah into our life, both during the day and at night, both when people see and we are not seen by anybody else, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Enjoy it, learn it, share it, and be holy.